I just had to figure out what I wanted to be and what I valued and what I cared about, and then just dive into that and own it. And it had nothing to do with anyone around me. I had to close the blinds to everybody else and just focus on learning how to advocate for myself and finding my values and my boundaries and then honoring those in a way that was sustainable, which was hard work.
Hello, welcome to The Vibrant Introvert, the show about real people experiencing introversion and social anxiety, their stories of transformation and change, and how they thrive in their daily lives, all told through the lens of acceptance and commitment therapy. I'm Gabby Lanier. Consider for a second a tiny hermit crab scuttling on the sand. That hermit crab might go unnoticed. It might be mistaken for any other hermit crab, but it's unique. And its shell might be mistaken as any other shell, but it is uniquely the environment, the context in which the hermit crab resides. If you were to pick up that little hermit crab, you would notice nothing spectacular about it, but to that hermit crab, that shell is their home, their space in this world. So what about you? You have your own space, your own context by which you're living your life right now, one that is very different from anyone else's and different from what it looked like probably 5 or 10 years ago. Your shell is your life right now. And like the hermit crab, one day you will outgrow that little shell in search of a new shell, some new career opportunity or some new relationship or new passion you want to pursue. Whatever that new space looks like for you, it will be different somehow, and it might represent some new challenge or a space that you will have to grow into. Today, I want to share a conversation I had with a fellow introvert and behavior analyst, Summer Mingo. We talk about our own experiences as introverts and how we've learned to not only come out of our shells, but to grow into them. Today, we're going to explore what it means to grow into that space, how that journey will also be one of discovering what it means to live authentically, and what that actually means for a deep-thinking, highly sensitive introvert.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast, Summer. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me, Gabby. I'm feeling nervous and excited today. My name is Summer Mingo, and I currently live in a very small rural farm town in South Georgia.
Yeah.
I'm a mom of 2 cool kids and a board certified behavior analyst, and also a co-owner of a small behavior analysis firm here in South Georgia.
Oh, very cool. I think we are kindred spirits because you have told me that you are also a self-identified introvert. Is that right?
Yes, I check all of the classic boxes for introversion. And as of recently, I'm proud, more so than that has stressed me out for the majority of my life until moving into some of these processes of acceptance.
I love that because it's like finally we can get into a space where we can look at who we really are or our experiences, and say, yep, this is who I am and this is how it might always be, and I'm okay with that. And so I know today you're interested in speaking your voice, speaking your truth, and just walking people through what it's like to be an introvert. Do you kind of want to just take it from there, Summer, and tell us your story?
Sure. Introversion is one of the personalities or just a part of who I am. Another part of that is being autistic and what maybe some of the things that I've experienced as even a child has created a self-perpetuating, isolating experience until I decided to do something about it. That was chosen by myself, not by society or a parent or, friends constantly, come on, come on, come out with me. It was more of a like, I really wanted to seek value in a specific type of connection, and being forced into all of these different environments didn't really net that for me. So I just kept pulling and pulling and pulling back. But there's a lot of things that were hard that I don't think a lot of people that don't experience the world in which we do maybe notice. And that can be, like I said, it can be isolating as well. So when you meet your tribe, someone like you, and honestly, my best friend who I didn't meet until I was 32, she's a lot like us. I felt that there was something wrong with me. And yeah, figuring that out in your 30s has been interesting.
Can you kind of talked a little bit about it in kind of these general terms, but can you think back to a situation where you started to see yourself in that different way, maybe comparing yourself to other people or experiencing how others might have tried to push you into situations that didn't feel comfortable for you?
Absolutely. I think the first time that I realized that things were harder for me, comparison was within my own family structure. Even to go there, I lived in Panama City Beach my whole life, and then they would on the marina they would construct this huge like acrylic Santa, and they'd light the tree, and they'd pass out candy, and it's a really fun experience, right, for families to go to. And my brother was the first one running out the car door, and it was like pulling teeth to get me out of the car. I was 8, and it wasn't like I was afraid of anything. It was just I didn't know like how many people were going to be there, if I was going to be bumped, touched, what the noises were going to be like, the smells. Would I be close to this big thing? Could I stand farther away? Like there was no, I didn't know how to advocate for any of those things. It just was a lot. And I noticed that that was the first, like that exact experience was when I knew, I was very self aware that I was not operating like the other kids around me. Like this was a lot, and this is supposed to be fun. And I just want to go home.
Yeah.
So I've had many of those little moments throughout my life where I can also see everyone else around me and notice like, what am I missing? You know,
Mm.
um, just through the just different phases and ages, even to today, it's that way, but I'm able to manage it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have, I don't know about you, but I feel these urges sometimes. Like I have those thoughts too, where I'm like, I look around, everyone's having a good time. And I love that phrase, what am I missing? Because you're like, my urge is telling me to hide and to be quiet and to be by myself or be with someone who I feel really comfortable with, not with this group of people who I don't know and are
Yes.
unpredictable. Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't really ever get it when people say like, "Oh, this is supposed to be so fun," and I'm like, "Okay, but it's more scary than fun."
Yeah.
Um, so, um, so you kind of did hint to at what some of that kind of in your internal space, what you were experiencing, some of those thoughts. Um, is there anything else that kind of comes to mind to you when you were put in those situations? Like what went through your mind?
I felt like I had to be like someone else. And I honestly feel like my 20s where that was okay, the whole childhood of doing the things of singing on stage, even for, her little programs or doing all the things. I mean, those were all terrifying to me. I didn't want to be up there. I never wanted to. Um, just all of the things that we do that are just so normal to everyone, a part of being growing up and experiences that we all can relate to. um, I just went along with it, right? And I feel like in my 20s I had gone along with things for so long that I just lost myself in it, and I didn't ever find my voice until I broke and I had to go to therapy. It was trying to fit into this mold that I was never going to fit into. It never felt comfortable. Um, and it got to a point where I was just done. I was done hating myself for not being able to. I was done. I just wanted to find me through all of it. And that's what led me to ACT.
Yeah. I definitely identify with that feeling too of you're talking about like trying to it feels very inauthentic to show up to a situation where you feel like there's these kind of standards or expectations, that you should act a certain way, be a certain way. In groups of people, Summer, does that feel more uncomfortable or about the same as you and two other people? What feels more comfortable to you?
Naturally, max three people. And I guess you just hit the nail on the head, Gabby. For me personally, is the authenticity piece. Transitioning is hard, and I'm not talking about hard transitions and like I'm leaving this room to go to that room. It could be for me, I'm very present with who I'm talking to when I'm in a social situation, and going from one conversation to a new face. I have to now focus on these features and what this person is presenting to me, and I want to connect with them. So I have to be fully there. And when there's more than three, I can feel myself kind of fading away. Like I'm like, this is a lot, and it's hard for me not to show up like that for people because I feel like that's what I was missing in a way. And I'm fine in groups. It's just those are the types of environments that normally when I'm done, I'm good for like 2 weeks. I'm out. There's like a door slam, summer needs some recharge. But the groups of 1 to 3 are kind of the ones I can sustain and enjoy.
Yeah, me too. I don't remember if I was telling you this Summer before, but it feels like doing these interviews to me feels very good because it's a one-on-one. That's my favorite way to interact with people. And when I do larger groups where it may be trainings or something, I've gotten better at it over time, but I feel like there's been a lot of practice, a lot of kind of like exposure to it. And then you kind of get used to it over time. But definitely groups are the hardest thing for me. So let's shift and see. So you said that you started to really identify these struggles in yourself and then even seeking out therapy. Was that in your teenage years or more in your adult years?
It was more in my adult years. Honestly, I think my teenage years were a blur. um, and yeah, when I got into my late 20s, after, the grind of finishing bachelor's and all the things that come with your 20s, and I was able to take a pause, is when I realized, wow, I've got a lot of work to do because I'm supposed to be a fully functioning human and I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That was a slap in the face.
Well, it's like, why don't they teach us more social skills?
Yeah, that would have been nice.
I wish there was like a high school class in socials. I would have needed that then.
Yeah, just a 4-year curriculum, please. I need all of it.
And like, why was that a slap in the face? What really told you that it was something that you were really missing?
I think, again, it was one of those, just a self as context. I'm looking out, I'm seeing how other women now in the space are interacting, and I'm just not there. I feel like I'm still a teenager. I feel like there's so much left I have to learn to be able to get to this spot. But yet, is that a comparison? Am I truly not there? What did I, there was just a missing link for me to feel like I could operate in this space like my peers or like women my age. And I realized that there really wasn't. I just had to figure out what I wanted to be and what I valued and what I cared about, and then just dive into that and own it. And it had nothing to do with anyone around me. I had to close the blinds to everybody else and just focus on learning how to advocate for myself and finding my values and my boundaries and then honoring those in a way that was sustainable, which was hard work.
When I was listening back to Summer's story, I was so struck by how much we had in common here. When I was 22, I also had this realization about how much I had yet to learn and how far off I felt in being that fully functional, authentic adult that I really wanted to be, which isn't all that surprising because I was only 22. So I want to tell you my perspective before we jump back into Summer's story. Remember that hermit crab? Like the crab, we are always in search of some new shell, some new opportunity to grow into, right? Sometimes we go ahead and choose that shiny new shell only to realize how incredibly cavernous it is. Perhaps we realize sometime later that it's just not a good fit for us, and then we move on. Maybe we're scared by the whole experience and go scuttling back to our former shell, the one that's a bit too tight but much more comfortable and safe. So that was me at 22. I had just gotten into the Peace Corps and it was my first week in country. I felt way underprepared to be in that new space. It was hot and humid. The country that I was in had a higher per capita death rate than was Afghanistan at the time. And I was sitting there in a room full of smart, confident, extroverted Peace Corps volunteers from all over the United States. So, if you don't know what the Peace Corps is, it's a federally funded volunteer program in the US that sends volunteers to communities in foreign countries. And I was assigned to El Salvador, which, by the way, I love you, El Salvador. If given the chance, I would volunteer in El Salvador all over again. And also, my focus there was environmental education. So, yes, I had a biology degree, woohoo, but I was super overwhelmed and so underprepared emotionally for such a large change and this massively challenging situation for such an incredibly shy person such as myself. And, by the way, I loved my alone time. And in my life, I had never spent so much time in the presence of others in this new situation. I had never met and learned so many new names. And I could have never guessed how isolating it could be when surrounded by so many people who didn't speak my language or by so many fellow Americans who didn't share my life experience. And quite simply, I just was not comfortable in my own skin. And this new shell, it was gigantic, and I was struggling to figure out which way was up and which way was down. So that proverbial slap in the face that Summer talked about, that really resonated with me because I felt that slap in the face every single time I woke up in the morning and said hello to pretty much anybody. I desperately wanted to fulfill my role as a volunteer and actually enjoy the experience for what it was, but I was so busy trying to be someone I wasn't and trying to get rid of all of the discomfort and all of the uncomfortable feelings I was feeling at the time. And honestly, I never quite got to that place of authenticity while being a volunteer. Not fully, except for a few moments, and I'm going to tell you about them real quick. There was a few moments when I remember feeling authentically me. For example, if I remembered someone's name in my village, I felt authentic because I could show someone that I cared enough to remember their name and look them in the eye. Or when I taught my 12-year-old neighbor, who, by the way, was my best friend at the time, how to make pizza, and seeing that her face light up because pizza was so special. Or when I would go over to not my neighbor's house, but a family who lived a little bit in the outskirts of town, very poor family, and I would share a hammock with a toddler and that toddler's teenage sister, just swinging on a hammock under a mango tree. Or when I carried out a project that I really cared about, that I was super passionate about. Or one time when a volunteer came up to me, another Peace Corps volunteer, and told me that they described me as a quiet leader. And I realized that it was true and accurate and authentic to me. So these were the moments when I saw those tiny future glimpses of authenticity and presence, and these are moments I still look back to when I want to remember why I do what I do, even today in my work as a behavior analyst and a mom and a coach. These glimpses of authenticity really illustrate a few processes from that ACT framework, from that acceptance and commitment therapy framework. First, it's a blend of values. It describes what we care about. Second, it's those committed actions, those behaviors we do in line with those values that paints this picture of what we want our life to look like through our actions. And finally, it might also represent our capacity to accept what discomforts this new life presents to us as we fully move into that space. This capacity to own this discomfort represents what Summer will describe as experiential acceptance. Acceptance of all those self-doubts, those growing pains, those moments of uncertainty, So again, it's values, committed actions, and acceptance. These are the processes that I see at play here. There's more too that can come to mind, but to me, this is what I think about when I think about developing a sense of authenticity. All these processes together, they work and create this kind of Venn diagram of that authenticity, that sweet spot, representing our true self and how we desire to take up space in the world. Okay, before we go back to Summer's story, I want to invite you to check out a free resource I created called An Introvert's Guide to Getting Unstuck. This 45-minute mini course involves a series of journaling prompts, act-based exercises, and ways to help you navigate through barriers you might face as an introvert. If you struggle internally as an introvert or shy person or want to identify ways to thrive, go to my website, actinspiredbehavior.com, to get access to it and check it out. Just click on workshops and you'll find it there. And I will also post the link of that workshop in the show notes. So let's go back to Summer's story and learn how she started to realign what new opportunities for growth looked like for her when she really started tapping into her own sense of authenticity. Authenticity driven by values rather than this, prefabricated mold of what she thought she should be striving for.
And I remember in our last conversation, because we talked on the phone, you were saying like this process of starting to come out of your shell, because for so long, correct me if I'm wrong though, you felt like you were kind of closed off to people. You mentioned that you didn't have a best friend until you were much older, and that you kind of had to do that very slowly through the process of pushing yourself a little bit by little bit. But this work had to be very values driven, right?
Yes, it was values driven. The part of that that I've identified as a value is that it's connection, but not because I'm missing out on something. It's connection that is being seen and being open and being authentic in our conversations, and wherever that may be, whether it's at a coffee shop with a new person that I've just met or my best friend who I talk to every day. We're present and safe and seen. And I think that's the value of the connection that I'm looking for in the spaces that I'm at. And if I don't find that, and it doesn't mean like we have to talk about, our childhood or our deepest, darkest secrets or none of that. It's like in the moment, are we present? Are we seeing each other? And do we both feel safe in that interaction? And when I look for those things, I've been able to actually find more people that I enjoy being around.
That's so cool. You're really pushing for those values of connection, or like real, true, authentic connection, rather than you maybe pushing yourself to be more outgoing or to make more connections because you feel like you have to, or it's some rule that society has placed on you, or you're feeling lonely.
Right. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also hard for adults too, who have never been exposed to boundaries, is when you set them, because it's not a good fit and you're not rude or, no, you're not cool. I'm not dealing with you. No, it's nothing like that. It's just when it's not a good fit and you do set a boundary. Also not being a people pleaser after you set that boundary and be like, no, for yourself, these are conversations that you're having, it's not necessarily for them, but maybe I'll catch you next time, or, one of those type things where you just know as a person. And sometimes it doesn't feel good to other people, but those are the ones that I just feel that I just get sucked and sucked and sucked and sucked slowly away if I continue to try and nurture.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, it hasn't really gotten easier. I've just gotten better at it.
Mm-hmm. And some of this work I've done with some of my clients where we call it value checking. And, we look at the values we have around those relationships and how we want to show up and be, what we want our actions to really be characterized by. And when you really look at those relationships that you think you value, but then you look at them and say, but like you said, they drain me. Or you look at another relationship and say, no, this relationship, it doesn't drain me. It actually energizes me. It gives me gives me back that vitality that I want in a relationship, you know, and it enriches my life. And then asking yourself why, like, what are those values that you hold that feel so reinforced by this relationship? And oftentimes you can deliver those values to yourself through that interaction, which I think it's really hard to pinpoint what authenticity is. But to me, like, that is getting toward that concept of authenticity.
Yes, which is it's hard to do. And I know I have to commend you for what you do on the social media platforms and in this podcast. Because being a kindred spirit, I don't know your direct path, but I know that it has probably taken lots of feelings of falling on the face and getting back up and being vulnerable and open. And I am still not there. Like you, it's the scariest thing in the world. And as an introvert, I'm just in awe. So maybe one day.
Well,
But that would be a next extension. And I found you through social media. I found a lot of close people that I do consider friends that I've never actually been in person around, which social media has also been an outlet to find my tribe. But it's, for some reason, it's still that there's still that dauntingness of that to me.
Well, I think that never really goes away, that feeling, you know. But actually, it's interesting that you bring up the social media piece, Summer, because I really truly do. It's very difficult for me to show up on social media because I just, all those things that you tell yourself, for me, feel so amplified when I get on to social media. No one wants to hear what I have to say. And is this really interesting? Or thinking back on that one time you posted something that got no feedback, or just all this different self-doubt that comes up. And also it just doesn't feel very natural to me, to be honest with you. But in doing those uncomfortable things, it's, you find the value in it over time. For me, that value has changed dramatically. I don't really get on there anymore for the same reasons. I get on there because just like you said, I've actually made a lot of really amazing relationships over social media, which people said that. It's kind of like that example you said, like people go to these things, these events, and they're supposed to be so fun. And I'm like, people show up on social media and they hang out there and it's supposed to be so fun, quote unquote. But I just don't understand, like, what am I missing? And now I get it. Like, I get that you can connect with people on social media. And it's been so amazing because you do find people who share those common interests. It just took a while for me to really contact that piece of it. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. I've gotten better at being uncomfortable with it. Yeah. And how about you? Like, has it been hard for you to be on social media? Is this something that's newer for you, or has it been something that you've done for a while?
No, I mean, the main account that I have is, my Instagram committed to presence profile, but it's more of a personal one. I don't really, I kind of share some behavior analysis things on there, a lot of autistic advocacy type posts, and just my life. I'm not trying to run a business on there. I truly am looking for connections. But at the same time, it it's really hard. It's really hard to post a photo of myself. It's really hard. Not that I know no one would judge it, like, what is this chick doing? Everyone's doing it. It's just hard. And for the longest time, it was just my kids, because I, it's hard for me to put myself out there like that. And then I'm like, I don't know. All of it seems a little clunky to me. I know that sounds so weird, but I truly am I'm truly about to be 40 is what that sounds like. But I have found so many cool people, and I'm hoping eventually that it will become less of a daunting experience.
Yeah. But it sounds like you're finding the value in that too. You doing it. It doesn't feel super comfortable. But do you feel like you can show up authentically?
I do. So, there are some posts that I have posted that, like you said, got no likes, and they were some of the most ones that were meaningful to me. And so instead of looking at it like, wow, no one liked this. I actually went back and saw who did. And I'm like, thank you. I would, for some of them, thank them and like, what is your perspective on this? And open up awesome conversations about like-minded stuff that I actually enjoy. So that was cool. I don't really, I guess I don't care. Like no one can like any of them. And I'm not one like it bothers me that much. I'm looking for the connection versus the actual reach. It's just for connection for me. So,
Oh
um,
gosh, I love that so much. Love that. Yeah, because I wonder that about people. I think that sometimes you get in your head about what people think, or especially on social media, because for me, I just cannot get on social media if I feel inauthentic. So I've created my own way of presenting myself on it that feels good to me. But even then, there's sometimes where I want to post something that is really uncomfortable, and I'm like, okay, I know people might think one thing or this, that, or the other, but I'm just thinking this feels really good to me right now.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
You're a whole person though, right? So I guess that's the other part is every time I post something about, Black issues or social justice or even the autistic advocacy, um, accounts that I absolutely adore or repost, I see friends fall off. And, I'm like, that's fine. That is completely fine. Like, because if I'm living authentically, I want them to live authentically. And if it's not your style, please go. But this is a part of me. And this is a part of the things that I do care about. And there's going to be occasionally a post about these things because it matters.
mm-hmm. So I have maybe one more question for you before I let you go, Summer. Is there any committed actions that you've made recently, kind of around some of the anxieties you might have, associated with this experience of being an introvert? Have there been anything that you've done that maybe you've committed to that feel like really big wins for you?
Absolutely. So I'm trying to get out and about into the world, obviously in a safe way. Uh, and I do want to be more of a community leader and presence where I'm at, because it's such a small area and there's so many parents that they need help. And stepping into that role outside of like a paid model and just being there for people is important to me. That's also very hard for me. So when I know I'm going to a space that I have not previously been to, in my mind or on a sheet of paper, um, to help with the experiential avoidance, which now I call these committed actions toward experiential acceptance, is a list I create of what the place might look like, what the fabric of the chairs might feel like, how many people might be there. So it's just a mental checklist, a rundown of like, this is a space, these are the people, and these are the things that I can't control. So it's all the things that I absolutely can't control. What does that look like? And it really has helped.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're kind of putting yourself in situations, structured exposure to discomfort, and telling yourself, yep, I might feel these things. Yep, these are situations that might make me feel uncomfortable. And through that process, do you feel like you're kind of saying like, this might happen and I'm willing to experience it. This might happen and I'm willing to experience that.
That's absolutely what's happening in my head, because the goal of doing the experience or going to the event or showing up in that space is not about all of those things. It's about the message or the connection that I'm trying to have. So preparing myself with that understanding makes everything else acceptable.
Yeah. And like we were saying around getting out of your shell, like, I'm going to come out of my shell. I'm willing to do that. And here's why. But like, I would also be honest with myself that it is uncomfortable and to set myself up for success. That's cool. I love that, Summer. That resonates with me because I've had to do those same things, when it comes to parties and family get-togethers, even just if it's a small group of people with people that are my family. Like I suffer from anxiety, social anxiety around my own family. And I think that's probably where it was initially triggered, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll sit in my car and I will think about why I'm there and how very important it is for my son to know his granny, and for me to have those relationships now and in the future. And I can say like, yep, I feel really anxious right now. I feel really anxious about what unknown things could happen, what conflict could arise. And I'm willing to do that because it's worth it. But it's taken me a lot to get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a process for sure. And I don't know that it gets any better. And I think that's one of the realizations of going through therapy myself, is that there are things that are just going to be what they are because that's life for you. But there are little things you can do along the way to make life what you want to make it. And it's not like it never really gets easier. It's just you find better tools, and you're more aware of your values and your boundaries, and you're able to communicate differently. And that alone for me was life changing, was just being okay with like, this is who Summer is, and that's fine.
Yeah. And it's like you get better at navigating it.
Yes.
Even if those things, those self-doubt statements, the feelings, anxieties, and nervousness doesn't necessarily go away. It's like ACT teaches you this form of like mental Tai Chi, and you can slow things down enough to be like, okay, I'm gonna move this way, I'm gonna respond in this way. I'm gonna give myself some space and step back, or I'm gonna push forward really slowly to the place where it's slightly uncomfortable, and then I'm going to hold it. It's like, it's this like change in how you're responding. And that in and of itself doesn't make it easier, but the more you practice it, the less aversive all those things become. And it's like the barriers that feel like a mile high feel like half a mile high.
That's true. You contact more reinforcement for honoring that piece of you that's willing to just stretch a little bit.
Yeah. And then you can take that experience and you can say, I did that thing so hard, but now I look at it and I'm like, it was like a speed bump, but it was so hard. And
that's
then
right.
And that looked hard, and you can almost feel like energized by it. So you're like, I know I can do it. I have the tools. And then you fall on your face and you're like, okay, that was hard. So yeah, it's been very a joyful experience for me to kind of see that process unfold. And honestly, Summer, that's like why I've changed my coaching practice, because when I look at all the work that I've done, the single most thing I'm the most proud of is really owning this social anxiety, owning this label or this experience, and having the outlook of, I want other people to feel as comfortable in their own skin, whether it's introverted or extroverted, as I feel at this moment in my life, which changes on a daily or moment to moment basis. But it's like, you just get comfortable with everything, even the uncomfortable things,
Yes.
So, thank you so much for your time, Summer. This has been lovely. And I really adore hearing your perspective and your outlook on that mindset you have around social media. That is really helpful. I'm going to think about that a lot, I think, just as I continue on this journey.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm actually not nervous anymore. So thank you.
Cool. That's lovely to label, isn't it? Because then you can say, oh yeah, that does ebb away, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Thank you for saying that.
I can't tell you how much this means to me. To me, it's a huge stepping stone, and just being more me and being okay with getting out into our communities.
I did sense that from you. Like this in and of itself is a huge committed action for you.
Yes.
I've been trying to reach out and interview on other podcasts, and it's really nerve-wracking for me because I can edit myself from here to sundown, and I know how it sounded at the beginning. But But I've been trying to work on that, to not edit myself so much, because I do want people to hear what I sound like as just human. So, and that's what we are. Beautiful humans.
That's right.
Yeah.
Bless this mess is what I say all the time, because it's a beautiful mess.
Yep.
We are here reporting from
Mommy Live.
Mommy Live. My question for you is, what do you think your mom does for a living?
She helps kids.
Mm-hmm.
She helps kids and learn cool stuff.
Cool.
You just listened to Summer Mingo, a fellow introvert, sensitive, autistic, mom, and behavior analyst. She is such a wonderful example of how authenticity can be a process of constantly finding out what we value, understanding our own strengths and struggles, and moving into spaces that are progressively more and more aligned with those deepest desires. I really loved Summer's insights into finding authenticity in her relationships and growing into herself according to what she finds the most authentic in terms of that connection. I also love how she describes her way of navigating social media. You know, how she seeks out connection with the few who like her posts and then dive into deeper conversation behind the scenes. And her strategy for practicing that experiential acceptance, oh man, that's so helpful. I really love the idea of practicing acceptance ahead of time as this way to grow into new spaces and accept that discomfort that comes along with it. And some of that work I also do myself. I do through this process of journaling. So if that is something that you're interested in trying out, you should try it and see how it works for you. So, like the hermit crab, seek out new opportunities to grow into, but don't do so according to what others might expect, that you think that others might expect of you. Your sense of authenticity, it'll look different, but you do have the capacity to grow into it. And within that journey, find a space in this world that is just right for you.
Tell me something about your mom. Is she super serious?
No.
If you are interested in reaching out and telling your story, would like to take the Vibrant Introvert mini course, would like to join our monthly group called ACT Collective, or receive one-on-one individualized support and guidance on your own personal journey, check out my service, Coaching for Vibrant Introverts, which specializes in serving those with anxiety and social anxiety. You can find me on Instagram at actinspiredbehavior or at my website, actinspiredbehavior.com. I'd love to hear from you. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe to this podcast and even rate and review. It would be so helpful. Thank you so much. I'm going to be publishing this podcast every other Wednesday. And perhaps you know someone who could relate to Summer or myself or might benefit from this story because of what is going on in their life. If that's the case, text them the link or share it with them on social media. Thank you.
What is your mom like?
She's goofy
Okay.
and silly,
Uh-huh.
funny, goofy.
I'm 2 times goofy?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Hello again. I want to take a moment and say that this podcast is for educational purposes only. Content and conversation provided in this podcast should not be taken as or replace professional or therapeutic recommendations. As a board-certified behavior analyst, my goal is to disseminate acceptance and commitment therapy and behavior analysis to the wider public and have meaningful conversations to further explore our understanding. If you are concerned about your own personal well-being, I encourage you to seek out the help of a licensed professional who can provide individual support to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, we have a visitor. Hold on one second. Matthew, you want to say hi to Summer?
Who's Summer?
She's my friend. Can I tell you her
Hi,
name?
Matthew.
Hi, Summer.
Hi, bud.
Yeah.
What a sweet voice.